for this chance. I'm David Moll. I'll be talking today about Umami and 11T, a privacy-first, self-hosted approach to web analytics. Now let's quickly go over the agenda of what I want to talk about today. That being, I will quickly talk about myself. I'll be going over what Umami actually is and why you should run your own analytics. I'll then briefly cover about how you can self-host Umami, that being in the Umami cloud or via Docker. And then I'll be also showing a live example of how you can add your 11T website to Umami, that being how to get the code that you need from Umami itself and putting it into your 11T code. I'll also be quickly talking about privacy-focused analytics alternatives. As a hint, there's more than one. And then I'll be also talking about my very first 11T plugin, that being 11T plugin Umami. And I'll be talking about how it works and how to use it. Now, let's quickly talk about myself. I'm David Moll, coming from Germany. I'm 27 years old. I work as a junior software engineer in UX and UI for Zeppelin, which is a small startup here in Germany. And I'm also currently looking for a project. So if anyone likes what is seeing here, then do please send me a message. You can find my links, my socials under davidmoll.net, my blog under blog.davidmoll.net. You can also find me on LinkedIn and my public GitHub profile and also on Blue Sky. Now, let's very quickly talk about what Umami is and why you want to use it. Umami is a privacy-focused open source analytics tool made in Iceland. It is out of the box GDPR and CCPA compliant with no need for a cookie banner. For those who don't know, GDPR is a general data protection service here in the European Union, and CCPA is the California equivalent. You can also host Umami yourself, that being via Docker, Docker Compose, or you can build it yourself using just the source itself. And Umami has tons of amazing features. You can analyze the traffic, you can analyze the visitor, you can track custom events, you can see the real-time data, page views, bounce rate, traffic sources, location, devices, languages. I could talk 5 minutes more about all the nice features, but there's a lot of them. Now, let's quickly go about why you should run your own analytics. It has many benefits, most of them being tailored towards if you run, for example, your own shop, but some of them are also really useful if you run, for example, your own portfolio, your own blog like I do, or whatever project you're currently working on, hopefully with 11T. Running your own analytics has some performance tracking benefits. You can, for example, monitor the website traffic trends over time. You can identify high traffic periods and seasonal fluctuations. For example, if you have a shop, it doesn't really make much sense to sell a winter sweater in the summer. So, for example, you can see that with your own analytics and see what's selling and what not. You can also compare current performances to past data for growth analysis, or you can see sudden drops in visitors and investigate potential issues. You can also get a great benefit of user insights. You can understand where your visitors are coming from. Umami tracks all of that. You see the countries, the devices, the languages, and many more things. You can also analyze the user demographics, behavior patterns, or engagement levels. And it also helps you tracking the visitor frequency. You can see where new visitors are coming from or how often old ones are returning. And it also helps you, this is also really useful if you run, for example, a blog, it helps you discover what content keeps users engaged the longest. If you, for example, run ads or sponsored links, you of course want most of them to be on the blogs that are read the most. This also helps you getting a better understanding of your customers and viewers. You learn what pages, products, or content attracts the most attention, and you can see how the user navigates your sites, and for example, they jump off. You can identify common entry and exit points. That being, for example, if your checkout is badly optimized, doesn't really run well, or there are some other bugs, users most likely will jump off at that point and not continue with the purchase. If you want to run a successful shop, you need to make sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible. And that also comes with Umami having no performance penalty, if of course done right. You get some analytics tools slow down your website. So it's better to choose lightweight solutions, and server-side or privacy-focused friendly tracking also avoids excessive resource usage, both being on your side and on the client's. It also helps you to minimize JavaScript and third-party scripts to keep page load speeds fast. Umami itself only has a single JavaScript file that is really, really small, so not much is going on from the client's perspective. And a well-optimized analytics setup also ensures a smooth performance without sacrificing any insights. Having good analytics also helps you in your SEO, your search engine optimizations. So you can optimize your search engine optimizations. You can see which search queries bring visitors to your website. You can analyze bounce rates or dwell time to improve ranking factors, and you can hide or find or optimize underperforming pages that, for example, are very slow or have high exit rates. And this also helps you overall with conversion optimization, where you can, for example, optimize forms, landing pages, or checkout processes. You can also run A/B tests, meaning different customers see different sites, and you can test different page layouts, call to actions, pricing strategies, whatever you want. Umami supports everything. And most importantly, if you ask me, you get an improved user experience. With Umami, you can identify slow-loading web pages, you can fix performance issues, you can also detect or resolve broken links or navigation issues. And it helps you get a better understanding of how users interact with your website, and you can improve or refine your user experience accordingly. Now, on the next slide, I'll be talking about how you can self-host Umami. For those who don't know, self-hosting means that you do not run your setup in the cloud, for example, which in the end is just someone else's PC, but on your own setup. You can do that on a laptop, on a PC, on a Raspberry Pi, or even on a phone. Whatever hardware you have available, you can probably self-host on it. It also has the added benefit that no one else but you gets the data that you're looking for. It's really useful for privacy and just not sharing more than you really want. There are two options that Umami offers out of the box on how to host Umami. That being the Umami Cloud, which has a free tier and gives you 100,000 events per month that are being tracked. You can add up to 3 websites to it, and all the data is saved for a 6-month data retention. But if you ask me, the best way to do it is with Docker. Who don't know, Docker allows you to run or spin up your own containers, and being containerized applications that just run on itself and do not need any other access or cannot interact with other containers on their own. They're really small, really lightweight, and greatly improve performance. And setting it up is really, really easy. You just clone the official Umami GitHub repository, which already includes the YAML file you need to run Docker. In the same directory, you then run docker compose up -d, d meaning daemon, so it runs in the background. And that's already it. You already have an instance of Umami running on your system. And there are, of course, many alternatives to Google Analytics. There is just not Umami. There are also many others that I quickly want to mention here. Those being, for example, Open Web Analytics, Matomo, Countly, GoAccess, or Plausible. And there are many, many more, and just not for Google Analytics. At this point, you can replace any Google product that you use to use anything else. Best example, I do it myself. I don't think I use any Google service that I can think of. There are many lists that I've linked here. There is, for example, right now, really famous European alternatives.eu, which lists a lot of alternatives that are produced here in Europe. You can also find other alternatives on open source alternative.to, and really focused on today's topics, there's also Google Analytics alternatives.com, which offers just the alternatives simply to others that I'm mentioning right here on the list, so you can compare them and choose the best ones you like. If you also want to see other applications, not just Google Analytics alternatives, I've linked some GitHub repositories that are great lists. They're really extensive and they cover whatever you need. If you want to host your own Google Images, for example, alternatives, there are many applications you can find there, and they're super easy to set up, similar to what I just showed you with Docker Compose. Now, I do want to quickly show you what the dashboard actually looks like and how you can implement it. So I'm going to quickly pull it here. That is the wrong window. That is the right one. And this is, in the end, what your own dashboard will look like. For example, here I have a website or a tracker put on my own blog and my own, please scroll, thank you, Firefox, my own portfolio. And you can see just here on the dashboard how many views are there, how many visits or how many visitors right now there are, the bounce rates, or the visit duration. You also see that there's currently 1 visitor on my portfolio, so I do hope you like it. Now, I do want to quickly show you what it looks like if you want to add your Umami website to your or your Umami tracker to your own websites. It is really easy. You go simply to your settings. You create a website here. You go to Edit. You get the website ID here, which you do not need right now, but you do need the tracking code. And this includes the JavaScript file that is being sourced for Umami and also the data website ID. You just copy that, go to your, for example, your 11T code. For example, here I have a base nunchuck file, which I use for the layout, and you quickly just post it in. And that's all you need. Next up, you can build your website and you put and the script will be automatically run whenever someone visits your website. You can, of course, also configure it to ignore ad blockers or add more information with Cloudflare headers. So you can, for example, also see where the visitors are coming from, not just the country, but also the city. But personally, not much information for me. I'm more than happy with the country. And that's basically already it to run your website. That's all you need. Umami offers many features. For example, you can put in reports that you can see. Here you can, for example, I have two configured, and those are the browser usage for this year and the countries that I visited my website over the last 6 months. For example, you can just click on View, you run the query, and it shows you where your visitors are coming from. For example, you can see that most of my visitors are coming from my own country, Germany. I'm probably most of those visitors. And there are also a lot of visitors coming in from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, India, and whatsoever. There are a lot of countries in the list, going as low as Argentina, Taiwan, Singapore. So there are a lot of people visiting your website that you might not even know from. And it really shows you how a simple website can reach anyone on the entire world. It's really useful. Now, back to the presentation. It should be this window. Yes. I will quickly talking about the 11T plugin Umami that I wrote. It allows you to use the API that Umami offers and get all the data of it and present it on your own website in 11T. It is really simple. The script itself is really short. And here I've just listed the 4 steps that are required in the npm package to run the plugin. First, it has no dependencies at all. The package.json in that regard is completely empty. The very first version used to have Axios as a dependency to make a data request, but since then switched to Node-Fetch just to make sure that there are really no dependencies that are needed. In the very first step, the plugin sends a post request to fetch the Umami authentication API to get an authentication token. And if the response is successful, it returns the authentication token. If not, it throws an error so you know something is going wrong. In the second step, it uses the API to fetch analytics data from itself, that being from Umami, and then uses the search params to construct a query string to dynamically get the data from the parameters. It then sends a GET request with the bearer token that has the authorization header that we got from the first step to the API to get all the data. And if you get that back, it's happy. If not, it also throws an error. And the third step, it's really simple. We just format the data so it's all in a single object. And then in the fourth step, we publish the data and as a global data in 11T under the code name Umami. Just to show you how that looks on my code, this is basically the entire script. If you do not understand code, do not worry, it's really simple. Basically, this is authentication. This is fetching the website data. Here it just formats it, and here it exports it as a global data. Actually, it's just this file. And that's already it. Now you do need to save some data, some information in your 11T config. To quickly show you what it looks like, I have it here on my next slide. That is right here, the 11T plugin Umami and how to use it. In your config, you do need to import it first with const Umami plugin, for example, then you're required. And then in your 11T config itself, you basically just add a few parameters, that being that you want to add the plugin, it needs a URL, a username, a password, a website ID, which I previously showed in my Umami dashboard, a start date and an end date, that being for how long the data should be accounted for. Here, as an example, I just use moment to get the data from today to last month, to the last 30 days. But you can, of course, configure that to whatever you want. It's all dynamic and always runs on when you build your website. So, for example, you build your website, it lasts 7 days. You build it again, 5 days later, you get the data of the last 7 days again. In Umami itself, you basically have multiple data endpoints you can get. It's all saved in the global data. You have the page views, the visitors, the visits, the bounces, and total time. Total time, that is being the total time spent on the website divided by unique numbers of visits. And it's only calculated for visitors that visit more than one page. And it's the difference between the first and last event time, visit and they're summoned in this duration time. I've also added the feature that you see the same data for the last time, for the last query that you run. For example, on my website, on my stats webpage, which I'll show in a second, I have all the visitors linked or shown for the last 30 days. But if I use instead the previous value, which you see here on the right, you can get the data from the last month, for the second to last month as well. So you can also compare where your visitors, how many visitors or page views you have and where they're coming from. Now, just to show you as a practical example, I have here where do I have it? Here my stats.nunchuck file, which has just a table with all the data. And here, for example, I have in the table row my views per month, and I access it with Umami page views.value. I can also just quickly show you what it looks like in my config. Really sorry, Zach, it's a bit of a mess. I hope you don't hate me for it. A lot of plugins that I use. And this is basically everything that I just showed. And all the data you see here is, of course, protected in an environment file. As an example, this is all you need. You need a URL, you need a password for it to authenticate, the website ID, and a username. And that is all you need on this point. And just as a practical example, as the last spot, I will quickly, if I find the window, there's so many right now. No, that wasn't it. That was it. I will show you on my blog what it looks like in action. So you see here on the stats, I have the viewers of the last month right here, and that's basically what it does. Now, of course, getting the live visitors is a bit difficult on a static website that is more featured for, let's say, React, for example, or Angular, whatever you want. But there are many other stats that you can get with this API. It's really useful, and it also is really useful to use outside of Alinity. And that is basically already my presentation. I want to thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I didn't talk too fast. It's a bad habit. And if you do have any questions, do please let me know.